What's up, YouTube? So today I wanted to talk to you guys about my new sort of experiment I'm playing with my diet. While I'm doing that though, I'm starving, just finished working out and showered, so I'm gonna be making my food. But I just wanted to kind of let you guys in on what I'm doing. Let's set that thing up. Just gonna be making some chicken up right now. It's already cooked. What I like to do is I boil it up actually and throw it to kind of in a dish like this, and then cut it up, put it on a pan with some seasoning, and it turns out really good. Here, I'll even bump you guys up a little bit, so it'll just look like I have a double chin the whole time. But so yeah, so I'm playing around with intermittent fasting. The reason being is I'm kind of on a strict diet again, not prep diet. But the thing is, I have my birthday in a week, and then the week after that, I'll be at the Olympia Expo. So of course I want to look good there. So kind of cutting down the carbs and fats again, keeping my protein sort of where it's at. And the reason why I'm playing with the intermittent fasting is since post-show, I try to do more of a recovery diet and get back to maintenance level calories. I've been eating about 3,000 calories, better than what I got to like on my last week of the show, which was about 1,600. So almost doubled the calories basically, and been kind of eating there and keeping my weight even, if that makes sense. So the problem is my body kind of got used to that fuel being there again, and it got excited to have the food and everything like that. And so with that though, I didn't do any binging, and I probably, because I've kept cardio in, I haven't really put on much fat or much weight in general. And so therefore, I can tell my hormones are not necessarily returned back to the regular levels, because I still get a lot of cravings. I still have the itch to binge, if that makes sense. And it can be tough. So, and the reason I know that is luckily because I've gone through a show show prep before, so I'm able to kind of identify it a little bit better, which can be tough your first time around because you just think you're hungry all the time. Because if you didn't know, you have leptin and ghrelin levels that handle your hormones with hunger and kind of shutting that off when you're full or fed. And those, when you diet down hard, can get really messed up. And so the problem is, if you've never experienced it, once you come off a prep, you're just hungry constantly. There's enough out there, enough content for sure on it, if you're really into like the science of it. But it could be really tough, and you can wonder, like, especially if it's your first time, like, why am I hungry still all the time, and why do I want to eat all the time? And that's usually why. And so I've been fighting those things off. I've been keeping my diet pretty clean, been eating out here and there and enjoying a meal once or twice a week, but really been pretty on top of it, so I'm happy. And that's probably just because I blew up the first show like 25-30 pounds afterwards, so I learned my lesson. But with that being said, this time around I'm going kind of back on diet, and because I probably haven't gotten back to my regular maintenance body fat level or put on enough weight to where my body's kind of satisfied with it, I'm not losing those like those hunger cravings, you know. And so what makes it hard is it's my diet now, which isn't a prep diet at all, is actually feeling like harder than a prep diet, because I'm much more hungry. I'm feeling like eating all the time, like seriously, like I'll eat a meal and not be satiated, like just still want to eat. And the salty sweet thing is terrible right now, because if I have anything salty or anything sweet, it's just, here, I'll put you guys up here. It's just, I want the other one immediately. Cool, I don't want you guys to fall over. Alright. But yeah, so that's where I'm at right now. So, getting to intermittent fasting, the reason I'm incorporating that a little bit. The reason I'm incorporating intermittent fasting is because I like to drink black cold brew in the morning anyway. Of course I prefer it with a little creamer in there if I can, but I don't mind the black. And so I'm gonna be drinking that anyway, right before my cardio in the morning, which I'm keeping in my fasted cardio. But now, because I'm cutting back down the calories, the carbs, the fats, I'm gonna fit most of my food into a window. That window, I believe, I'm gonna play with it, but I think it's gonna be 1 to 9. So 1 p.m. to 9 p.m. Is gonna be when I try to fit all of my calories in. And it's not maintenance calories. It'll be my dieting, so I'll bring the carbs back down a bit, probably about 150, and then the fats, I'm not a big fat guy anyway, so I don't crave a lot of fats. I don't eat a lot of fats. The most would be almond butter, some guacamole once in a while, things like that. But I'm not a big fat guy, so the fats will probably stick around 50. And then protein's gonna bump up a little bit because post-show I did bring my protein down. Because I got so low calorie going into my show and so low carb, I was making up for a lot of my calories with protein. And so my protein levels got pretty high. So I brought those down post-show, but those will kick back up a little bit just for this temporary mini cut. So I'm not sure I'm gonna play with the numbers. I'm not exactly sure where the macros will sit, but that's just kind of what I'm gonna do. And because of my cravings, because I'm wanting more food and more food at one sitting, if that makes sense, I think it would be smart for me to play with this intermittent fasting so that what I can do is put more calories in a single meal. So I'm not eating one time, but every meal will be larger than if I were to do my normal 5 meals a day, which is kind of where I was at before. So with that being said, that's kind of what I'll be focusing on. And like I said, eating pretty large meal pre-workout, but probably backloading most of my carbs and eating them post-workout. For now, like for instance, I came home, had a bagel with some strawberry preserves on it. It's one of my favorite go-tos. Just a quick source, high glycemic carb. And then a protein shake, of course, 2 scoops. And then probably have, I don't know, that's what I'm deciding on right now. Some chicken, asparagus. I try to have my green vegetables. I don't like them pre-workout just because I'll get bloated sometimes. So probably a green vegetable, and then who knows what we'll get into. Some green, not some green rice, that'd be weird. Some rice, maybe some rice cakes. Like I said, I eat pretty clean usually. So my meals are pretty boring sometimes, but that's just the way I like. You can spice them up. But that's just kind of how I eat. So maybe I'll have some oats. I'm a big fan of oats. Love to throw some cinnamon in there, some almond butter maybe, if I have room in my fats. Even protein oats and stuff like that. So we'll see. That's my biggest concern with this though, is where I'm gonna get all my protein in that time. So we'll see, but I'm hoping in between meals it'll be shorter time periods, so even if I have like a carbless meal or anything like that, because I am keeping the carbs down, those heavier meals will last me longer, and then by 9 o'clock hopefully I'll be kind of getting ready for bed, at least winding down enough, but who knows. For my last meal I might have to have like a Coke Zero or something like that, just to hold me over, hold some like sugar cravings and stuff like that. So we'll see, but that's just kind of what I'm playing with now. And seeing how I do with it. I got a week, like I said, for my birthday, and then I'll probably enjoy those couple days, grab some dinners, desserts, things like that, and then Olympia after that. After Olympia, really, that's when I kind of go full-fledged, quote-unquote, bulk mode, more of a lean bulk this year. But yeah, so we'll see. I'm gonna play with it. But that's why I'm kind of going about it, if that makes sense, just to kind of handle my food cravings a little bit, maybe dial those back. And then also too, that's when I work. I work earlier in the day, probably starting around like 7 a.m. is when I start getting emails and things like that. So having that mental clarity, having that time that I would normally be dedicated to making or eating my food, just focus purely on getting stuff done and maybe getting ahead on the day. So that's kind of where I'm at now. That's what I'm gonna try. I'll do another video and keep you guys kind of posted on how I liked it. Maybe if I'll start incorporating it regularly and things like that. But we'll see how it goes, and I'll see you guys next time. All right, so today I got a leg workout for you guys. And yes, before you ask, they are that white. So I like to start off with leg extensions at the beginning of my workout as sort of an intro, because I find that I like to get the blood into that lower quad region, the teardrop area, and also around the knees. And so I'll start off light here, but in control, not rushing. with 2 sets of 15. So even though the weight is lighter, with the pace that I'm extending at, it should still be somewhat difficult. Now moving on to the next, we have 3 sets of about 10, and still here you'll see I'm not rushing through the movement at all. If anything, really just counting to like 2 1,000s or so on the way down and up, working on getting that pump, getting the blood flow in there, contracting the muscles, feeling the quad all the way up through the hip flexor. Leg day face for you right there. So now I kind of make our way into back squat here. This is just somewhat of a warm-up set, getting the hips firing, getting my stance just comfortable, and getting everything moving properly to go a little heavier, because I like to consider my training somewhat hybrid, to where I don't train purely accessory work. I don't train powerlifting, of course, but what I like to do is have some exercises throughout my workouts where I kind of push it and make sure I'm getting stronger and just challenge myself. And so the back squat for me here is usually what I'll do on leg days, and just throw some weight on the bar and push it, because at the end of the day, let's be real, looking the part is awesome, but also throwing some frickin' plates on there and moving them, that's always fun too, whether it's bench, your compound movements, bench, squat, deadlift, things like that. So as you can see here, now we move on to like a set of 5, and that's usually about as heavy I'll go without a spotter. Sometimes I'll have a friend along or somebody else hitting it with me, especially on bench, but squats even, and get underneath me and kind of help with some force reps, but just didn't feel like doing that today. With this, I kind of overshot the weight, threw some 25s on because of how 315 moved, but just felt comfortable with my set of 3, so didn't push it too much to literal failure. So for this next exercise, can be really great quad workout, but 2 things I want to focus on is my foot placement and then the way you choose to apply the tension. Now with that being said, you see my feet are lower, and then also you can't tell, but my lower back is placed really straight up against the pad, and now you're almost driving it in basically. So as I go back, you don't even have to go super deep, just about 90 degrees, and when I push through, I push the balls of my feet through my quads, so I'm feeling that tension in the quads. Similar to here, so I almost do a sumo stance, still low height wise, but sumo now, and very low motion, but just a quick tension, a quick twitch basically through the quads, pressing here, and it's a killer quad burnout. So I promise if you kind of do it like that, I know it's hard to explain over this and not in person, but really can just destroy your quads. That deserves a leg day face. Now moving on to this superset here, just really kill the hamstrings a bit. Starting out with some RDLs, dumbbell. It doesn't really matter, barbell or dumbbell, but for me, I just prefer the dumbbell sometimes, and sometimes I prefer the barbell. It's not really that big of a thought. With this, I try to focus on really pulling through the hamstrings. I'd like to think of my knees similar to my elbows when I do a chest fly. You kind of lock in the angle, and then you pull through the muscle instead of the joint. You don't want the joint to be changing angles, because then you're not purely using the muscle. And then here we go to some step back lunges, and just using the dumbbells for that as well. Same thing, barbell can be used if that's what you have. For me, I find it's an easier transition from one to the other if I go from dumbbell to dumbbell rather than barbell to dumbbell or barbell to barbell, that type of thing, because the weight does change. This is just another angle of the lunges. As you can see, I've been on a big baggy t-shirt kick lately. I don't really know why, but just been feeling them. Anybody else into that? Kind of the long tees, Maybe it's just because winter's coming up and I proactively am wearing them just because I know I'm going to get fat, We do what we can to self-preserve. Now finishing up here with some lying hamstring curls. I love to do these as a finisher just because it allows me to go full throttle and heavy on my other hamstring movements, leg movements in general, and then fall back on these as really a time under tension thing, a machine that I'm not worried about going to failure to, because I can just let it go if I need to, and I don't even really need to go that heavy to make it difficult. So finishing up the leg workout here with just some lying hamstring curls.